I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. So today we're going to paint a winter wreath. So let's start out by grabbing like a number 6 size brush or something like that, number 4, number 6, and dry it off and grab some dark gray. And we're gonna kind of make it look like boards or shiplap in the background. So we're gonna grab that like number 6 and some dark gray, and we're gonna skip down just a smidge from the top and throw a little line across. And don't worry if it looks kind of thick, because we're getting ready to come back and thin it down anyway. And whenever you're doing this at home, you can wrap it around the sides too. That way you don't have to frame it. But just grab a lot of paint and go for it. You can do your boards like bigger or smaller than mine. I just think it looks good to have at least like 4 or something. But just keep grabbing a bunch of paint and go for it. And if you want to like pre-mark the edges, you can do that if you're a little particular and want it to be just exact. And then once you have all your little lines, then just kind of wipe off your extra, and we'll chunk that one in the water. And let's grab a huge brush. So like a 1-inch brush or something, and dry it off. So 1-inch brush, dry it off, and we're gonna grab some bright white, mostly bright white. You can have a little bit of light gray, but I would use mostly bright white because our dark gray lines are gonna mix in anyway. And I'm gonna start by just throwing some white through the center of all of the boards. So start by just hitting the middle, and then in a second we'll get closer to everything. Kind of hard to see the white on white, but it'll probably just look a little bit glossier. But kind of hit through the middle of all your boards just to get some paint on there. And then once you've gone through the middle of all of them, then I would just grab a little bit more white, and now we're gonna get like all the way up next to our gray. I forgot that little half board up at the top, so I was gonna hit it real quick. But now just grab more white, and now we're gonna thin up our gray lines. And don't worry if this gray kind of mixes in, because we're gonna come back and add streaks to our boards anyway. You want it to be a little streaky and not perfect. It'll make it look more like shiplap, more like wood boards. But you can see how I'm just like skinnying up the gray. Just a couple more to skinny up, and then we'll come back and start streaking. So we'll just skinny up all of our cracks here. You don't want to get cold. Uh-oh, got a little red. That's not good. We'll just let that little part dry for a sec. Now I've skinnied up all my lines, so just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a number 8 size brush. Or I think that's what size this is. There's so much paint on it. I'm not completely sure, but grab like a number 6, number 8, and grab some really light gray, like super light, because paint always dries are usually a little bit darker than it looks. So we'll grab that light gray, and now we're just gonna do some streaks, like horizontal. And whenever you're doing these horizontal streaks, make sure you get some near the edges, near your little cracks. You just wanna make sure you're not streaking just through the middle of the boards. People have a tendency to just streak through the middle. You kinda wanna be an all-over streaker. So you wanna streak. Make sure you get some near that bottom edge. And it kind of helps to skip around because you're going to get better at it. So kind of skip around a little bit. I think it's starting to look pretty good and streaky. Alright, now that we kind of have it streaked up, and you can wrap these streaks around the edges too, just like you did your lines. You don't have to, but that way you don't have to worry about framing it. Alright, I think we got it pretty good and streaky. Try to get that red off of there a little bit. All right, now we're gonna let it dry for just a second. All right, so now that our boards are just a little bit dry, they're probably still a little wet, but that's okay. We'll grab like a number 6 size brush and dry it off. And now we're gonna do kind of like a circle with leaves. So let's start by grabbing some dark green. And we're gonna throw, and you can do your leaves however, like I kind of just do them like skinny through both ends. And don't worry if it's a little streaky because we'll come back and throw a little bit more paint. But I'm just gonna hop around and throw, because then we can come back and make it look more like a circle. And it doesn't have to be exact. It'll look more natural if it's not. But while we have that dark green, we're just gonna throw a bunch of dark green because some of our leaves will overlap too. Let's see, we need some more dark green ones over here. Starts out a little crazy. let's grab maybe some dark green and some medium green together. And let's throw a few of those leaves everywhere. But just now we're using like the dark green and like a medium green together. So we're kind of throwing all of our dark leaves first because we'll come back and throw some light. And we're just still going like in a circle kind of. So just kind of throw them anywhere you think you need one. Every time you do it, it would be different. So don't worry, yours is going to look different than mine, just like this one's going to look different than my first one. So now we have quite a few medium kind of greens. Let's see where else I need to add. So now let's add some really light greens. So I'm gonna grab like some chartreusey kind of green, light green, just some lighter greens together, and throw a few light green leaves. And these can overlap some of the first ones. The more like color greens, the better, I feel like, because you want lights and darks. So since these are getting a little too dark, I'm gonna grab a little bit more light. It's definitely bare up here, so I'm gonna add a few more leaves up here. And we can fill in too with the greenery, so don't worry that like all your leaves aren't, you know, evenly spaced or anything. Let's see. Maybe another light green one down here. Maybe another one. All right, we'll let that dry for a second. I feel like I still need one over here. Let's add. Just to kind of make it more round. All right, so once we have the start to our leaves, we'll let that dry for a second before we come back and add more. So just wipe off your extra and chunk that one in the water. And now let's go ahead and throw on a letter, which you can use a stencil for this or print something out to go by. I'm just gonna kind of go by that one. So now we'll grab like a teeny tiny brush, so the smallest one you have, a little, like a number 1, and dry it off. And you can do the letter whatever color, but I'm gonna do red because then I'm gonna add the red berries, kind of make it look wintry. Not necessarily Christmassy, you could use it all winter. But I'm gonna do a big C. So I'm gonna start. And I'm just gonna throw on my base first, like just a little thin part, because then I can come back and thicken it up. It's probably not going to look just like the one that I'm painting from, but hopefully you'll at least be able to tell it's a C. That's what we're going for here. Let's see, now we'll add our little loop-de-loop up top. And it's all right if you have to go over a little leaf, or you could throw it behind the leaf, it doesn't matter. Let's see, it kind of cuts through there, doesn't it? All right, now we'll come back and thicken it up just a little. So you definitely want to thicken up this part right here. But if you're just kind of doing it with your handwriting, the trick a lot of times is to just be thin when you're going up with your stroke and then thick for every part of the letter that comes down. So if you're doing a cursive letter, you always just want to be thick in the part that comes down. Let's see, let's go ahead and, we might have to come back and throw another layer on this too if it doesn't get quite dark enough for us. But that's helping it kind of thicken it up a little bit. Might have made our little loop-de-loo too big. And whenever you're doing stuff like this, don't worry if you make a mistake. Just let it dry, because once it dries, then you can come back and trim it up. Like how that got a little thick. We'll come back and trim it up. Gotta have a little patience, because if you try to paint over it right away, it'll just kind of all mix together. Yeah, I'm definitely going to trim that up. That got a little too thick. And then we'll thicken this up a little bit at the top. Not my best work, but let's face it, not the worst either. All right, we're gonna let that dry, and then once it's dry, it'll be a lot easier to trim up. So then, once we have our little C on there, let's go ahead and use that same teeny tiny, just kind of wipe it off and rinse it out and dry it off. And we're gonna grab, let's start with light green, and we're gonna throw some greenery. And whenever you're doing this, we want it to come like towards the inside and the outside. So always kind of start from your leaves and come out with your stroke. That way the thinnest part of your stroke will be towards, you know, the edge. And just hit these one time, because you want to leave them real light and piecey. And kind of everywhere where you have a little space in between, I would go ahead and throw just a little bit of greenery. But just remember, really light and piecey. So like load your brush with a lot of paint and just be really light. And we're going to come back and add some darker little pieces too. But for right now, just kind of start with the lighter greens. And this is where you can make your wreath look more round too. Like if you're kind of like heavier on one side, you can add more greenery certain places. Like this kind of looks thin right here, so I'm gonna add a little bit more greenery to it. But get like some through the bottom, some through the sides. You want it kind of poking out from everywhere. Just going to keep adding the little greenery kind of all through. You can even have it hang down lower in a few places. All right, so we have the start of our light greenery. So now let's just grab like some dark green with some medium green, and we'll add like a few pieces of dark greenery. And I wouldn't throw quite as many of these, just try to kind of skip around. That way they won't all be in exactly the same place. Try to be real light and easy. I have to lean back, make sure I'm getting enough greenery here. Need some down here. Okay, that's a good start to the greenery. So we'll just wipe that one off and chunk that one in the water. So I think our C is a little bit more dry now. So I'm gonna thin it up just a tad. So I'm gonna use a teeny tiny brush and some white, and I'm just gonna kind of trim it off where it got a little big. Smooth the edge a little bit, hopefully. And then same thing with this little part, got a little big. And we'll let it dry and then we'll check it out again. All right, now that we've trimmed up our C, let's go ahead and keep that teeny tiny brush, just kind of dry it off. And let's grab some more of the light greens, and let's throw just a little bit more greenery because it kind of looked a little thin down here. So we're gonna get a little bit more greenery going on while we have that tiny brush. Let's see, maybe a little bit more greenery right over here. A little bit more over here. I think that's looking pretty good. We can come back and add some more. And then just wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab like a number 4 size brush and dry it off. And now we're gonna go back to our leaves and kind of add some lights and darks. So I'm gonna start with the dark green. You can even mix a teeny tiny bit of black with it, but you want a really dark green. And we're just gonna kind of darken up just a few of our dark leaves. So I'm gonna try to skip around a little bit. Just so they won't be quite as streaky. So just in a few places. We have the dark green leaves kind of thickened up, or a few of them. Let's grab some really light greens, so some of the lighter greens together, and we're just gonna add some bright streaks through some of those. And I'm gonna skip around with that too, that way I'm not, doing them all together. Let's see, we're getting quite a bit of light. Now let's do some medium in just a few places. You don't have to thicken up all your leaves per se, just as long as we have some lights, some darks. All right, now that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and throw our berries on there, and then we can see if we need any more leaves or greenery. So you can use that same size brush, like a number 4, and dry it off. And we're just gonna kind of grab some bright red. And then we're gonna skip around and throw some berries. Whenever you do it, I would do like 1 some places, 2 some places, 3 some places, just so they're not always exactly the same. And just try to be a little random with it. Just gonna skip around and throw a few, and then we'll be able to see. And then I would just kind of scooch back to see like where else you need to throw anymore. Because you want a few towards the middle. A few towards the outside. Without going too cray-cray with the berries. I think that's looking pretty good. Just a little bit of paint through the, uh-oh. Here I am making the C bigger again. Just a little paint to thicken up that part. All right, let's check it out and see, let it dry for a second, see if we need to add more greenery. So now, you can always go back and add more leaves if you want to, but I'm gonna leave it kind of simple. So let's just go ahead and sign it. And now we have the winter wreath. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.